It's Global News and Zoom on Nigeria. Thanks for joining me. The headline says Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit U.S. later this week. Moscow set to permit convicts fighting Ukraine. Biden compares President Xi to a dictator. At least 124 Pakistani boats sank off Greece, and women set to shake Thailand's political history. The administration of United States President Joe Biden is planned to host Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during an official visit later this week as the two countries boost their relations amidst shared antipathy towards China's increasing influence. On June 22nd, the White House will hold a state dinner in Modi's honor, a sign of growing relationship between the two powers who have ramped up cooperation in capacities such as trade and arms sales. According to a press release, the Biden administration said a recent visit to New Delhi by National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan underscored the drive of the U.S.-India partnership in advance of Prime Minister Modi's historic official state visit this week to the United States. But human rights groups say the celebratory dinner is a de facto endorsement of India's far-right turn under Modi's leadership and weakens the Biden administration's stated goal of focusing on human rights and democracy in its foreign policy. India's Muslims and other minorities during Modi's tenure have experienced an uptick in violence and suppression as the government leans into a form of Hindu nationalism known as Hindutva. Modi has also been criticized for seeking to consolidate power and crack down on dissent. However, advocacy groups have called for greater inquiry of India's human rights record. Foreign policy experts say the Biden administration is mainly interested in the country as a potential counterweight to China, which the U.S. sees as its most formidable universal competitor. On Russia-Ukraine war, the Russian parliament's lower house, the State Duma, has approved legislation that will give amnesties to criminal convicts who volunteered to join Russian forces fighting in Ukraine, a move targeted at increasing troop figures during the first stages of Ukraine's counter-offensive. The legislation sets in law the recruitment of prisoners and criminal suspects for the war in Ukraine, a practice first adopted by the Wagner mercenary force last year before Russia's Ministry of Defense took over prison recruitment in early 2023, reports from Moscow said on Tuesday. In a statement on Tuesday, the State Duma said that pardons for fighting at the front lines in Ukraine do not extend to all criminals in Russian prisons. Acts of terror, sex offenses, espionage and treason are among the serious crimes exempted. According to reports, if the legislation becomes law, the criminal records of those who join the Russian army will be deleted once they finish military service, receive a state award for fighting, are wounded in action, or reach the retirement age of 65. Suspected criminals also receive an amnesty if they agree to serve in Ukraine. For suspected criminals who agree to take up arms, authorities can suspend criminal proceedings against them if they face up to 5 years in prison for premeditated crimes or up to 10 years for acts of negligence. The bill notes that crimes committed after the law takes effect will not be expunged, according to more report. The legislation would next go through a single round of voting in Russia's Upper House Federation Council, after which Russian President Vladimir Putin is anticipated to sign them into law. Even before the passage of the legislation, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the millionaire owner of the Wagner Group mercenary force, has been permitted to recruit criminal convicts as mercenaries, promising them clemency if they survive 6 months of fighting in Ukraine. Prigozhin over the weekend said 32,000 of his Wagner mercenaries recruited from prisons had returned home after serving in the war in Ukraine. The Wagner boss in May said around 20,000 of his fighters had been killed in the battle for Ukraine's Bakhmut city. With the high-profile acrimony between Wagner forces and Russia's defense ministry ongoing, Prigozhin has complained that his access to Russian prisons for recruitment has been stopped. The Washington, D.C. based think tank, the Institute for the Study of War, ISW, said on Tuesday that Wagner forces are attempting to recruit new fighters in the wake of significant losses in Ukraine. Joe Biden, U.S. president, has likened his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping to a dictator just a day after his top diplomat left Beijing following a visit intended to reduce the two countries' strained ties. Xi had been exasperated over an event in February when a Chinese balloon, which Washington says used for spy, flew over the United States before it was eventually shot down. Speaking at a Democratic Party fundraiser in Northern California, Biden said, "The reason why Xi Jinping got very upset in terms of when I shot that balloon down with 2 boxcars full of spy equipment is he didn't know it was there," Biden said. That's a great embarrassment for dictators when they didn't know what happened. That wasn't supposed to be going where it was. I was blown off, of course. The balloon episode exacerbated an already difficult US-China relationship, which was edgy over issues from self-ruled Taiwan to semiconductors and human rights, and urged Secretary of State Antony Blinken to postpone a planned visit to Beijing. Blinken finally traveled there last week and held meetings with Foreign Minister Qin Gang, top foreign affairs official Wang Yi, and on Monday afternoon, Xi himself. Although there were no significant breakthroughs, Blinken and Xi did agree on the need to stabilize the rivalry between Washington and Beijing so it did not result into conflict. Although Biden showed afterwards that he thought ties between the two countries were on the right path, his fundraiser comments risk renewed damage to the highly sensitive relationship. There was no instant response from the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. or from Beijing. Xi is serving an extraordinary third term as Chinese president and is China's most powerful leader since Mao Zedong. Biden, who is 80, is running for a second term as U.S. president in the 2024 election. On migration, at least 124 Pakistanis were on boat that sank off Greece, with hundreds feared drowned, authorities in Pakistan say. 2 of Abid Kashmiri's family members were on board the refugee-filled vessel that capsized off the coast of Greece last week. A cousin, Imran Nazir, and nephew Abdul Islam traveled from Kotli district in Pakistan-administered Kashmir to Libya in March after securing valid visas for the war-torn country. But Libya was not to be the pair's last stop, said Kashmiri, adding that his family knew their real destination, which is Europe. "There are many people from our village who have managed to leave for European countries where they are now settled, allowing their families here in Pakistan to live well," Kashmiri, an electrician, said on Tuesday, according to reports. Family members had paid 2.2 million Pakistani rupees, that's $7,655 for each of the travelers, to agents who provide documentation for people looking to find financial opportunities abroad. He said they are now considered among the missing from the Greek boat tragedy. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, and the United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, have said that between 400 and 750 people were assumed to have been on board the boat that capsized on June 14th in the Ionian Sea, some 47 nautical miles, 87 kilometers off the Greek town of Pylos. Thus far, only 104 survivors have been found alive. None of the women or children who were allegedly kept in the hold of the boat have been found. In Thailand, last month's historic election saw the Progressive Move Forward party claim the most seats in parliament and looks set to bring in a new generation of young politicians, supposing the conservative establishment accepts the results. A number of hitches remain for Move Forward to form a government with its major coalition partner, the populist pro-democracy party, Pheu Thai. But the results alone show a radical shift in the country's political landscape, with voters now demanding a total overhaul of the political system, which has for years been dominated by the military and monarchy. The northern Chiang Mai province is a case in point. Traditionally, a Pheu Thai stronghold, Move Forward took 7 out of 10 seats this year, campaigning on a platform of deeper reforms. The results also now show a generational turnover and increased gender diversity. 7 of the 10 candidates elected, including 5 women, are in their 30s. Director of the Gender and Development Research Institute, Runggrawi Pichakul, says 96 women were elected this year, representing 91% of the seats in the lower house of parliament, slightly more than in the 2019 election. She noted that Move Forward led the pack with 36 women elected, while Pheu Thai was close behind with 29. Rungwari says she has been especially delighted to see that young men from Move Forward had made gender equality a vital talking point. Such an outcome, of course, cannot be ruled out. that the last democratically elected government, a few Thai administration, was overthrown in a coup in 2014, ushering in 9 years of military-backed rule. More Stories says Afghan women find their voice in Indonesia. The Taliban, since returning to power in Afghanistan, has tried to silence women, but numerous of kilometers away in Indonesia, where many have fled to escape persecution, Afghan women are finally finding their voice. Here, women can be a boss, they can be teachers, they can be students, they are strong, 26-year-old Katerina Amiri said, according to reports. Katsira is the manager of the Cisarua Refugee Learning Center, CRLC, which in 2014 was the first refugee learning center established in Cisarua, Bogor Regency, 80 kilometers 50 miles south of Jakarta. Started by a group of Hazara refugees, the founders originally turned to the men who had worked as teachers in Afghanistan to lead the classes, but after they refused, fearing it would compromise their protection claims, the women stepped forward. There are now at least 7 refugee-led learning centers in Bogor that serve some 1,800 children, as well as 3 in Jakarta and 1 in the Thai capital, Bangkok. With an eye on potential resettlement in a third country, English is the language of instruction. Lucy Fiske, a senior academic at the University of Technology, Sydney, who spent 6 years researching the impact of the refugee learning centers on Hazara women, said it's transformative, especially for young women. She has kept in contact with many of the refugees who have been resettled elsewhere. Many refugee children in Bogor have had their childhoods interrupted due to conflicts. The learning centers like CRLC permits children to have the positive childhood experiences they missed out on, reports say. Many teachers at the learning centers like Katira started out as students and become teachers. Katira grew up in Ghazni in central Afghanistan and was a gifted student. She skipped multiple grades and completed an accounting course at the age of 19. She fled to Indonesia in 2016 with her 3 siblings. The youngest was 14 at the time after the Taliban kidnapped her mother, brother, and 80-year-old sister. In Africa, Sierra Leone president urges peace ahead of polls. The president of Sierra Leone is running for re-election, held his final rally in the capital on the Freetown's Lumley Beach on Tuesday. Julius Maada Bio held his final rally in the capital before the elections open on Saturday, June 24th. Voters will also elect members of parliament and local councils. Julius Maada Bio is one of 13 candidates running for the top office. The Sierra Leone People's Party nominee called for a peaceful election at the end of an edgy campaign. Traditional parade-like political street rallies have been barred this year to avoid potential violence. An ex-electoral commissioner, Maksud Gibril Cisse, expressed fears that there was in a process of healing after deadly riots in August last year. The 2 major parties waited until just a month before elections to release their manifestos. Since then, the opposition has castigated the Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone, ECSL, for supposed bias in favor of the ruling party, raising speculation that is laying the groundwork for a court challenge, a tactic both parties have used in the past. Disinformation abounds on both sides, and the online space could have a more important influence on voters than ever this year. Information Minister Mohammed Rahman Srowe said, according to report, that internet penetration had risen to closely 3 million from 370,000 people in 2018. Let's take a quick break. When I come back, I'll bring you more stories, particularly from Nigeria. Stay with us. You're welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Here are more stories from Nigeria. Tinubu arrives Paris for 2-day summit. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has arrived in Paris, France, in preparation to attend the summit on new global financing pact, which will be hosted by President Emmanuel Macron. The president, according to a release issued Tuesday evening by his special advisor on special duties, communications and strategy, Mr. Dele Aleke, was received at the airport by Ambassador Kayode Laru and other top government officials from the Nigerian Embassy and French Ministry of Foreign Affairs after the plane touched down at 6:47 p.m. local time. On Wednesday, he will receive detailed briefs from Ambassador Laru, Permanent Secretary Adamu Lemuwa and other officials on Nigeria's position on the summit and the scheduled sideline meetings with leaders and multilateral institutions. The president will participate in a two-day summit from Thursday, June 22nd to Friday, 23rd, that looks at opportunities to restore fiscal space to countries that face difficult short-term financial challenges, particularly the most indebted, mobilize innovative financing for countries vulnerable to climate change and economies battling with the effects of COVID-19 and energy crisis. Now, after hours of probing, EFCC releases autumn. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, last night to release ex-governor Samuel Ortom of Benue State after grilling him for over 10 hours at its Makurdi office. The former governor had earlier at about 10 a.m. reported at the zonal office of the commission following an invitation from the office. It was collected that he was invited by the commission to answer to allegations connecting to his 8 years of stewardship as governor of the state. After spending the whole day at the commission, Ortom was led to go alongside those who accompanied him, though the former governor could not be reached for comments. But a statement released before his release Tuesday evening by his media aide, Mr. Terve Akase, showed that he was not arrested by the anti-graft agency. Akase in the statement explained that contrary to insinuations in some sections of the media, the immediate past governor of Benue State, Samuel Ortom, today visited the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, to honor the invitation of the commission. Remember that the ex-governor had, before leaving office, vowed to remain in the country for at least 5 months to answer to any questions that might flow from his 8 years of being on the saddle. He also promised to present himself before anti-graft agencies if invited for questioning on any issue whatsoever, though no official of the EFCC provided any information on the visit of the former governor. However, yesterday, Benue State House of Assembly set up a 3-man ad hoc committee to investigate the finances of the 23 local government areas, LGAs, of the state under the former governor, Samuel Ortom administration. Speaker of the Assembly, Mr. Audona Dajo, announced the setting up of the investigative committee after reading a communication from Governor Hyacinth Alea on the matter. And finally, on the news, Naira appreciates as official parallel rates converge. Yesterday, the Naira's official and parallel rates converged after days of volatility sparked by the Central Bank of Nigeria CBN move to permit the market freely determine the price of Nigeria's currency. Specifically, the Naira appreciated by 1.8% to 756.61 Naira to a dollar at the close of trade yesterday, according to the Financial Markets Dealers Quotation (FMDQ) exchange. On the other hand, it floated at 757 Naira to a dollar in the parallel market. The executive officer of Forward Marketing Bureau de Change Limited in Lagos, who compiles the parallel market data, Abubakar Mohammed, told Bloomerang. Thus, the rates practically closed the gap between them a day after the official value was 1.6% weaker than the parallel market. The convergence adds strength to President Bola Tinubu's incoming economic plan targeted at restoring fiscal stability and growth by eliminating subsidies, freeing up the currency and reducing debt. Nigeria has seen a rush of reforms since Tinubu was sworn in last month to replace Muhammadu Buhari, who pursue unorthodox policies that has resulted in an almost 60% spread between the official and parallel market rates. As part of the reforms, the CBN last week abolished segmentation in the forex market and collapsed all rates into the I and E window. The Naira weakened as much as 29% on June 14th after the central bank lifted its controls and then briefly recovered, remaining volatile since then. Deputy Governor, Economic Policy Directorate CBN, Dr. Kingsley Obiora, said in an interview in Rabat, Morocco on Monday that we are allowing the market itself to set a price. The central bank plans to announce further steps to loosen foreign exchange controls in the next couple of weeks, Obiora said. Still, Nigeria is not going to set the currency totally free even now. There is no country in the world, even the US, that has a completely free float, he said. The central bank will continue to pursue a managed float, Obiora added. It may be too early to determine if the Naira's exchange rate to the dollar has bottomed out, he said, pointing to analysis done by the International Monetary Fund and international banks, which correctly suggested that the Naira should not be as weak as the parallel market indicated. Obiora expects that the supply of foreign exchange will eventually be unlocked once the price of the dollar reaches a level that both buyers and sellers consider fair. Tinubu's early decisions since becoming president have caught the attention of investors after he scrapped fuel subsidies that cost $10 billion last year and removed the central bank governor who had been seen as the architect of earlier unorthodox policies. Dollar bonds have gained and the stock market jumped to a 15-year high as a result of the changes. The removal of subsidies, along with the convergence of the exchange rates, will drive economic growth, especially from next year when the policies start making an impact, according to Obiora. A recap of major stories says Prime Minister Narendra Modi to visit US later this week. Moscow set to permit convicts fight in Ukraine. Biden compares President Xi Jinping to a dictator. At least 124 Pakistanis on boat sank off grace, and women set to shake Thailand's political history. That's all on the news. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.